Okay. Hi everyone. It's been a while, and of course, with today or with the advancement of surveillance in today's society, I thought it's wise to make some research on this topic so that I could maybe lay my own argument on the technology. First of all, as a disclaimer, I I personally like a lot of privacy, and this is not the case for me, maybe promoting surveillance technologies or so. But despite the fact that I love privacy or privacy is good, we still need to have a debate around these topics, which might seem nuanced, but very much necessary. And when we're talking of surveillance technologies, the first one that would come to mind, of course, is flock safety. If you go over TikTok or other social media platforms, you would mostly hear people talking about flock, maybe mostly negatively, I would say, on TikTok, or some talking of the positives. But I I have not just heard of Flock, but given that I get to watch maybe cops solving crimes and the likes, so I've seen how the said technology works from those videos, of course, and how some have helped in some cases or not. So I'll just go over and start with what you would say could be the good sides of these technologies. Take the first scenario, of course. You have uh, a kid that has been abducted in a neighborhood, and people in that neighborhood could not identify who the suspect is. And how would cops get to solve such a mystery or such a crime if there are no fingerprint trails, if they have to review hours and hours of cameras or other ring cameras around? How would they, of course, get to solve such a mystery? Now, if we had, or if the said neighborhood had a surveillance camera system in place, we could narrow down, or the police could narrow down the search based solely on descriptions of cars that had been entering or the car that was used at that point. And of course, the greater part of it would be if someone has a partial license plate number of the vehicle used. So given the color and other attributes of the said vehicle, with the help of surveillance technologies like flock safety, we could be able to narrow down this search in finding culprits. Now, the question becomes, would you want uh, a system which solves such crime, finding a child or so who has been abducted, or would you rather entirely throw the system away? That's something, of course, for you to make a decision about. The other point is that this technology can be preventative. And what do we mean by this? Flock claims that their systems can alert law enforcement for cars or that have been reported stolen, or people who have been reported missing. And in such a scenario, it becomes way easier than traditional policing, where you would have to file a missing persons report, and police get to do their investigations before doing everything, which might seem long. But if someone or had been reported missing, or a vehicle had been reported stolen, and the said vehicle passes through or along a flock safety camera or a surveillance camera per se, in that case, sending alerts to the necessary agencies would help narrow the time. And of course, when it comes to crimes, from what I understand or from what any other person would know, it is that time is always critical. If you can narrow down the time uh, in solving a crime, it is very important, or it becomes very important in the safety of persons or their property. So, with such a case, would you still, as I said, be willing to throw away the technology, or would you say embrace it or not? And that is another point. And I've watched across YouTube, as earlier stated, and seen how much uh, this technology has helped in solving cases, mostly concerning crimes related to car theft and the likes. And turns out it is not that bad. The next argument that I will lay out is that it is not the technology that is necessarily bad, but it is whether there are enough guardrails around the said technology. And what do we mean by that? Of course, when it comes to this, we are talking of the retention time. Is it that the information or the data that is being captured will live forever, or is it being deleted after maybe a 30-day period or 7-day period? And at the end of the day, if we could strip down this time or the retention of this data and putting in enough audits, then we are on a good path. And as well, it comes to with audits. If every person at a law enforcement agency, before making use of this or accessing this, needs to log why at any point they are making maybe a search through their databases also, so that in the nearest future or at any point you can have a trail of who had used the system and for what purpose. And this will come very handy in some examples at some point in this video. If you can put enough guardrails around this technology in order for it not to be abused, then you are on a good path. These or these quoted examples are simply just some of the advantages that we can say are advantages of surveillance or flock safety also. And with the goods of this technology also comes the bad parts. Now comes the time where we talk of the downsides or the points against this very technology or with surveillance. And the first strong point that would make is, let's say, each and every day when going to work, I pass, there is a road through which I usually pass and go to work. Each and every day I pass through this road. This road has a flock safety camera. Each and every day I go to work, come back, and I pass through this road. Now, given that this is surveillance, it is constructing a profile about me. I have not necessarily committed any crime. I am not necessarily part of any crime or any active investigation. So it is constantly constructing a profile about me. Let's say too as well, I go to work, not work, sorry. I go to for a doctor's appointment. Each time when I go to a doctor's appointment, I pass through this road, and with these cameras or these systems being everywhere, at the end of the day, it is constructing a profile of those who have not necessarily committed a crime. Now, should the government or some private company be able to construct a profile about you without any restrictions when you've not committed a crime, when you're not part of an investigation? Should that be the case? This is where I'd say I have a problem with these systems or these surveillance technologies. I don't necessarily want a profile being constructed about me. And yeah, and I say this because these these technologies or artificial intelligence or whatsoever, they become intelligent only when they are fed more data, right? So profiles are being constructed about innocent people who have not necessarily committed any crime and are being fed to these systems. And the systems are being trained continuously with innocent civilian data. Should that be the case? It's it's something which I believe should not really be the case. But yeah, that's the first thing. Another thing which is way worse than the first is when the technology is entirely wrong. And this is what breaks the whole eggshell, or I don't know how to put it. And take the first scenario. I read about that. I was like 3 weeks ago from the time when I'm recording this video. There is a woman who was in her home, and a cop came to her house and accused her of stealing Amazon packages. Now, what happened was uh, it actually misidentified her vehicle. She didn't steal any packages per se, but Flock got it wrong. And when the officer came to her home, what he made her know that he knew that she had been stealing these packages. Now, because Flock had been used to identify the said suspect per se, he was very sure that she was the one. Now, this is where the bigger problem lies. When these technologies are wrong, the impact can be very, very gross. That's just the first case. Uh, there is a second case of a girl. I think she was like 23, or a woman per se. She was 23, and there had been an accident on a highway which she had driven or driven by, and a different person had hit and killed 3 people, and her I think her car was a Dodge, which had a different color, and a 911 caller had reported that the car which caused the said accident was this color. Now, in the process of using Flock per se, a wrong person was apprehended, and she was charged and even jailed for like 13 days for 3 homicides. Now, it is only after certain investigations that they had realized, I think after months, that they had realized that they had made a total mistake. Rather than having a search of a car similar to what the 911 caller had reported, a wrong person was apprehended. Now, imagine about that. You have been wrongly accused of grievous crimes which you know nothing about, simply because a technology was totally wrong. That doesn't seem about right. It doesn't seem about great. It becomes a very, very big problem. And this is just another point. There is also bias as well in some of these systems, because when you train systems, given the kind of data that you feed it, at times those systems tend to be biased. That's another thing. So it could be that let's say crime data had been fed into a surveillance system, and a particular demographic, without calling any demographic, of course, have been widely used in the training data. These systems can wrongly identify people too who have not necessarily even committed a crime. Point on this, technology being totally, not totally wrong, but now the other classical case is when the technology is misused. The very people who have been given access to these technologies, when they get to misuse them, how do you account for that? There is a case of an ex-Texas cop who had been using internal flux systems for months to stalk their ex-wife. So, so it it comes to it brings up the previous points that I had talked about, safeguards, of course, but what happens when systems which are supposedly supposed to be used for good become such that they are misused by the very people who have, who have been given access to them. Yeah, this is not really an isolated case. There are tons and tons of cases of a similar nature where people having access, mostly, of course, law enforcement, having access to these technologies or to these surveillance technologies, have misused them. Sorry, have misused them gravely. So, still, even if you have, let's say, 99% of those having access using the technology correctly, even if just 1% misuses it, it is still a bigger problem. So these are some of the things which makes it difficult, of course, for people to accept these in their districts or in their counties per se. So it becomes an issue for them. Um, so, given these points, at the end of the day, the debate is not really whether it is not really a debate of surveillance versus non-surveillance. We already live in a surveillance-heavy society. These technologies need our attention, so it becomes a case whether we want to choose a surveillance-heavy society, and in return we get safe environments, or we have a privacy-focused society with less surveillance, but some things could fly under the radar. So I'll at the end of the day, I'll let you decide. But these uh, these technologies deserve some debate around them, and they are very much important, of course, in solving crimes, in helping recover stolen property, in finding missing kids, which are the good, which are the things which we expect. And at the end of the day, it is left for maybe people or governments to decide on what is best for them. Now, when I say governments deciding, I don't mean the government deciding on your behalf. Everything we live in a democratic society. Of course, everything needs some debate around it, and from debate, maybe people could vote up on whether they would want certain things in their communities or not. And that is about it. So I would love to hear what you think about these, of course, and you can share your thought, share your comments, maybe as well. You can share the video if you found it to be helpful, of course, and of course, subscribe as well. So, thank you very much for listening and have a blessed day. Thank you.